Hello, my internet chums. This is Dan at Blockworks. Well, it's another sunny day in Todd, although I think we may be coming to the end of this lockdown sunny spell. So making the most of it while it lasts. Um, so this is part 7 of my workshop musings vlog called Designing a New Lamp. In which I talk about designing a new lamp. This time I wanted to talk a bit about a woodworking technique that I first played around with in the 80s, if you remember the 80s. The student on my course was had a project designing a seed drill for developing countries that would be easy to manufacture, and it involved making a plywood cylinder. I suppose to hold the seed. I can't remember how it worked. I just remember the cylinder and watching him making it and thinking what a beautiful thing that was, just using plywood, bending it and ending up with something so perfect. And it kind of really caught my imagination and kicked off a period in my life then, for a little while at least, where I called myself a drum maker. And I was making drums with a lot of help from my friend Big Bill, who was making Irish drums at the time and actually knew what he was doing, so which was just as well. But then I kind of got into more and more into playing the drums, and then I became a drummer rather than a drum maker for a little while. So that's going back. So in this project, we're looking at I need to make the whole idea is the rocking thing. So if you remember this, fairly crude but very lovable, I think. Can you see it there? So this is the first prototype I built, very crude, very rough, but it's basically got a cylindrical parts-tip cylinder base there, which allows you to rock it backwards and forwards, and that's the sort of fundamental part of the design. So, so to make one of those, we need to bend plywood. So, because with these things, with a cylinder, it's kind of self-tensioning in a way that it's because it joins up all the way around. It's not going to spring open. It kind of pulls itself into shape as long as the material is even. But what we want is a part cylinder. So I was slightly, having not really done part cylinders much before, I was slightly nervous that it would maybe just spring back a little bit once I'd made it, and it wouldn't retain its accurate dimensions. But basically, we're using this sort of thing. So it's a very thin birch plywood, which is beautiful stuff. If you've not used it or come across it, you will have come across it, but it comes in all different thicknesses and it's just really lovely. You get it in different grades. This is, I think, 1.5 mil thick. I've got a big sheet of it behind me, but I could probably use quite a lot thicker than this for this job. But you can see how it bends. I mean, it kind of probably go a bit further than that, but I don't want to break it. And the technique is basically taking two or more layers of this stuff, gluing them together, and then holding them in a position while the glue sets. And when the glue is set, it rather miraculously, I think, holds its shape. So there's one there, and it's absolutely rigid. And that is it's partly from the glue itself, which is set rigid and holds it in place, but it's largely because, when you bend this, it compresses on one side and stretches on the other. So I suppose, and I'm kind of guessing here to be honest, but just the fact that you're gluing a compressed side against an expanded side, as much as anything, and they're held rigidly together, that is what holds it in place. So here's one I made earlier, and this is a bigger version. So if you remember I'm making two different size lamps, one with a 200mm radius curve at the bottom and one with a 300mm radius curve at the bottom. So this is I think that's the 200, and then I've got a bigger one here which is a 300. Again, totally rigid, and it completely has held its shape, so there's no springing back at all. So great. So these are the formers I use. So these are just made out of I had quite a lot of old 25mm birch ply again, but this is really thick stuff that I'd used in a previous project. So I just got some offcuts of that and made this. So that's obviously the curve, the radius that I wanted, I've just sort of hollowed it out at the back, or made it so that I can use the clamps, which I'll show you in a minute. I've just a block of wood on the bottom so I can hold it in a vise while I'm doing it. So that's a 200mm. This is a 300mm. Same thing. Basically, that's the important side. This side just needs to be out of the way. Got a block so I can hold it in the vise. So that's that really. So the job, the technique is just simple as that. You just take 3 layers. So you can either glue these 2 at a time and build them up, or you can go crazy like I do and glue. I'm using 3 layers, so I just put glue on between those 2 layers. I put glue between those 2 layers. I take these like this. I'll take my former, which will be in the clamp, in the vise, and then I pull it like that. And then I use these wonderful things here, or kind of love-hate thing here, which are a web clamp. So if you've not come across these, it's basically just a very long piece of webbing, like that. And then at the end you loop it, and you can adjust that loop length, and then you've got a tightener. So you tighten it around the job, and it just pulls everything together. So you kind of get it loosely round, and then you tighten this handle here, and it pulls it all together. So you do that, and I'm just using some standard PVA. I think it's Gorilla Glue that I'm using at the moment, but it's just PVA. It takes sort of 30 minutes to be, you're supposed to be able to unclamp it after 30 minutes, but a day, 24 hours before it's fully set. So I leave it 24 hours in its clamps, like that, and then when I remove it, I got this, and it literally comes off the mould like that. And I think, yeah, yeah, that's right. Yeah, it's fine. That comes off pretty much bob on. So that's the technique. That's all there is to it, really. It has its own little tricks and things. You can also use. There's different ways of clamping it. Another way would be probably a better way, really, is depending on the size of the job, is to use a vacuum bag. So it's like a sealed bag that you put everything inside it, all glued up, and then you suck all the air out of it, and the vacuum or the air pressure outside will then hold everything together. And it's better for concave when you're trying to press things in. So web clamps are easy peasy for concave, but not so much for convex. Obviously I'd need to make a second mould, and it all gets a bit complicated, to push it in. So vacuum bags are probably the way, and I might well get sorted out with those. But at the moment I've just got web clamps, and they work marvellously for this job. So that's basically the technique. So for me and these, I'm making the parts now for these first sort of round of balance lamp prototypes. So now once I've got these, a number of these made up, it's a very easy job then just to trim the edges. I'll probably cut a curved front or whatever I decide in the end, and then clean them up a bit more and treat them with some sort of lacquer or varnish or wood treatment. I may well put Blockworks, the branding, just the name, big and bold down the inside there, but I haven't decided how to do that yet. And that really is what we're talking about. That is making round things out of flat things. But if you haven't got any, you go and get some birch ply. It's fantastic stuff, and you can do all sorts of things. You can any shape you want, and you can bend it around. Things for home things, you can make nice, really attractive shelving units, or curved corners and that kind of thing. Nice flooring, anything. So that's probably enough for now. I will carry on making bits and pieces and do some more videos about the other parts for these prototypes. The metal bits are still at the anodizers. That'll probably be another week or so before I get those back. So I've got plenty of time to make the bits in the meantime. So don't forget to check out my YouTube channel now. I think I've got 3 or even 4 subscribers. So like I say, it's ramping up pretty quickly. But if you could subscribe, that'd be great, just to kind of get that thing going. But otherwise, I'm still putting these out on Facebook, and we'll continue to do that as well. So thank you very much for listening, and I'll speak to you next time. Bye.